Everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 563. Today we're going to take a look at Deathwatch Overkill. Now this is a game that came out earlier this year in 2016 from Games Workshop. It's set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and it's a two-player game, and one side will be taking over a Deathwatch kill team who is going and trying to figure out what happened to another kill team on this mining planet, which is infested with these this gene stealer cult of the Tyranids. So it's kind of similar to Space Hulk in a way, where you've got sort of these Imperial / Terminator style guys against gene stealer-ish types of guys. But the gameplay is very, very different than Space Hulk. You can play it over a series of missions in a campaign, or just roll up one of the missions in the book and then play from there. It's got some different sort of asymmetrical mechanics for each side. Let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at it, and then I'll tell you what I think. Okay, here is just about everything that you get in the game. Now here is all of the board pieces here, and these are nice, very Space Hulky, glossy boards. They are double-sided for the different environments, and you can see it's modular, so you're going to be setting up this map here in a variety of ways based on the mission, so it's not always going to look just like this big rectangle there. Now the game comes with all of these miniatures. You're going to have the Deathwatch miniatures here. I'll just give you an example. I spent some time painting these. It was actually a lot of fun to paint. That's one of the reasons my Blood Bowl is not painted. Because I spent a lot of time doing these. Here is a Deathwatch Terminator there. And this is probably the coolest miniature, is the Gene Stealer Patriarch. And so he's pretty cool there. He's on this little pipe or something on these skulls, and there's a little Deathwatch or some kind of Imperial Knight type of head there. And there's a couple of the sort of generic Tyranids there, and then you have your kind of mixed guys, the Gene Stealers. So there's a variety of I think these guys are the Acolyte hybrids, and these are the Neophytes, excuse me, and then the Acolytes are the more alien looking suckers here. So he's a little bit more alien than human there. So you get all this stuff here. Now there are some other miniatures over there. They've released rules for another kill team. So we've got these guys here that you can get. I think all the packs here are about $30 each. But here's one of the kill team guys, and they have some more like specialist gene stealers. So this guy's kind of a demolitionist and stuff. And so you can put all that stuff together. So how does the game actually work? Well, one player's going to take over the kill team Cassius here, and this is the main guy here. So he's going to be in a lot of your missions. He's going to be leading this group, and you're going to take a certain number of these depending on the mission. And there's going to be a certain sort of makeup of this horde here. And you're going to just set this board up, the way the mission is designed, and then you're going to have different objectives based on that. And you can play through a campaign, which actually is, it's very, very simple, but it actually works pretty well. So you're going to get different sort of bonuses for the following missions based on, the consequences of the previous mission. Now, in addition to the minis, you're going to have some different cards. Now, the Deathwatch player will get cards for each of their soldiers. So they're each going to have different special abilities, different fight stats, and so on, and also possible special abilities. And whenever they take damage, you're going to turn them over to the wounded side. Now, if you damage them again, then they're going to be limited, and they're going to be out of that particular round or that scenario. If you do not do another damage, they're going to automatically heal because they're very extra resilient, brainwashed fighters. Now, the alien player, the Gene Stealer player, is going to get this deck of cards. You will see these are sleeved. I will say the components in this game, unbelievable, fantastic. Putting together these miniatures is relatively pretty easy. I would say even if you were kind of a new miniatures player, most of these go together very, very well. I believe there was not even a handful. I could count on less than one hand. A couple that has some issue with just they were sort of fiddly to put together. But the vast majority of the ones that come in the game are very easy to put together. But the one kind of knock against the components in the game is the card quality. That's not very good. You definitely want to go ahead and sleeve those. Everything else is fine. I mean, these cards are fine, the boards are fine, but these particular cards that the alien gets are a little bit on the cheap side. But go ahead and sleeve them in, you're going to be good. So you're going to get these. You're going to draw a hand of these every turn. You can have a hand limit defined by the scenario, and they're dual purpose. I'll explain what they do real quick. So each of these has a little ambush section here at the top. This is going to tell you what type and how many of a particular type of Gene Stealer you could spawn out. Now you can see here on the edges of the board, in the scenario will define for you which are the edges that they can come in on. You're going to put these down, and then at a certain point in the round, you're going to flip these up, and then they're going to sort of spawn on here, and you'll be able to move them and try to assault the Marines that are there. So the other thing is you can hold a card back and use it for its Gambit ability, and it gives you sort of a sudden or a timed way to actually play this. So play this card at the start of your attack phase, or play this card in your movement phase, or sometimes into a response to an attack. So you kind of hold these back. So there's a real kind of interesting decision for the Genestealer player, what to send out, what to hold back, and try to play, as a special ability. All of these special abilities for the Marines here are going to come from using their individual characteristics. Now there are some of the larger and more effective Genestealer players. You got the Primus and the Magus, and then the Patriarch there. They actually have double-sided cards. All the other Genestealers, once they take 1 damage, boom, they're eliminated, but you can send horde after horde after horde. So how does a round actually work? Well, the rulebook itself is very, very simple, but I just want to show kind of the size of it. There's a lot of fluff in this rulebook, and you can see, though, there's a lot of pages, but I would not let this deter you at all, because the game is very, very straightforward and intuitive. Like I said, there's a lot of fluff, and there's also a lot of, here's how you set up the mission, here's what the objectives are, kind of thing. Everything you need to know, really, is on the back of the rulebook, plus, in the case especially of the Deathwatch, it's going to be on the cards itself. So how does a turn sequence work? The first thing we're going to do is do the Broodmind phase. And so they're going to draw, the Genestealer is going to draw up to their hand limit, whatever it is defined by the scenario. And then you're going to lay ambushes out. Now typically you can't lay more than 2 ambushes on a spot. You've got to kind of spread them out. And like I said, the scenario will tell you where you can and can't put those out. And then after the Genestealer has laid these out, then we're going to go into the Deathwatch Commander movement phase. So any of these Deathwatch folks here are going to be able to move up to their speed. So you can see here's the speed, and you can see we have these kind of, let's just move some of these guys here, these little zones here that are sort of outlined. So I could go 1, 2, and move them up to here. Now you can also make a jump. So if we look up here, we'll just move this camera up here. We could try to make a jump across here. And you have here the combat ruler, but you can also use it for the jump. And so let's say he was here, and we could try to jump here, but we're not going to be able to do it because it has to be within assault range. You can only jump a very, very small distance there. And when you do a jump, you actually are going to roll a die, and on a 1, you're going to fall down, and you're going to not be able to move them. And you actually are going to take a wound to be wounded, so it's very risky to do that. Now, when you do move into a zone, you can put your units anywhere in that zone. So if I move here, they can land anywhere within there, and so that can be very important because combat is measured by the ruler. Now, if there are enemy folks in there, then you can move into that, but you cannot move out of the zone until you slay those figures. Now, after the Deathwatch player moves, then the Genestealer will be able to move, and they're going to move all the models on their board, and then that will launch any ambushes here. So you move everything, and then you'll launch everything. So these will be just come on the board, and won't be able to move until the next round. And then you're going to get 3 attack phases. So this is interesting. The Deathwatch is going to get an attack, and then the Genestealer does an attack, and the Deathwatch does a second attack. So there's definitely going to be a lot more Genestealers on the board, and very, very few Deathwatch, but they get a chance to kind of attack twice. So how does combat actually work? Well, let's take a look here. So the combat is basically the same for both the Genestealers and here the Deathwatch players there. Now here we can see all of the stats for all of the different types of Genestealers, and then again, each of these guys has, in addition to a special ability, they have their own kind of like combat chart there. So let's say, for fun, Cassius was going to make an attack. So he's here got a bolt pistol, and he's also got a Hellfire rounds on it, known as a bolt pistol. So this is going to show you the amount of dice that you're going to roll, and this is the number that you need to actually get a hit. So we're going to roll 3 dice, and we're going to be hitting on 3s there. So in that case, we rolled very well. We're going to have 3 hits, and so then let's say he was attacking this fella here, and this is the, what is this, the auto gun, hybrid with the auto gun. He's got no armor. You can see that there. So those hits would just go through. But if an attack was happening, in this case on Cassius, let's say 3 hits came to him, he's going to roll for each of those hits, and he's going to save on a 2+ there. So he's pretty strong. Now, some of the Genestealers have a little bit of armor, like a 5+ or a 6+, but it's, you're going to mow through them pretty much. And the other thing to know here, of course, is the range. So here we have Cassius, and he's going to be attacking this Gene Stealer. Now, since he is within assault range, you can see we've got the ruler here. Then he gets to be able to do that big attack roll with the 3 dice because it's in assault. Now, combat range is going to be measured here, like so. So you've got up to here's combat range, and then here's a maximum range. So you can see here he can't make any attacks there at maximum range. And if he's doing the same types of rounds with the bolt pistol, he only gets the 1 dice there. Now there are some special abilities, Rend and Blast, for example. So Blast will target actually a zone, so you can do multiple damage. Rend will kind of traverse, so if you do enough damage to hit him, it'll go on to the next one and so on. And then you can also get Cleave, which basically ignores, in this case, armor. So there, you don't make an armor save against anything that has Cleave on it. The last thing is you can forgo your attack for your attack phase and actually do a move. You can move 1 space or, jump 1 space. And that's pretty much the game. Okay, that is Deathwatch Overkill. And frankly, I was pretty surprised by how much I enjoyed this game. So you have 2 relatively asymmetric sides. The Gene Stealer side is really, really straightforward. To kind of just send wave after wave of your Gene Stealers, and they always have the goal of like slay a certain number of Deathwatch before they do whatever the scenario goal is. So the Deathwatch might be in to go like retrieve something, or go blow something up, or go kill something, or maybe even slay a certain number of Gene Stealers themselves. But the Gene Stealer is really straightforward. But then you add in that deck of cards, and it has a nice kind of hand management sort of aspect where it's like, okay, I put these guys out here. Save this card for its special ability. Maybe I'll have a good opportunity to use that this round, or try to set myself up for that. And you can even kind of bluff when you put those down. You don't necessarily have to spend those and ambush with those. So that kind of gives some flavor to that side. Whereas the Deathwatch side, it's all about using the special abilities of the different characters that you choose. And you can choose, the characters a lot of times for the different scenarios. So I'm going to choose, they give you, what is it, like 11 or 12 total that you can have, and you're not always going to take, that many of them. So you're going to kind of pick and choose and sort of like deck build in a way, sort of configure your little small unit, your small army of guys that are going to go in there. And if you do get that extra pack, that gives you like 5 other guys that you can choose, and you can swap those in as well. But on the terms of the Deathwatch player, they seem a little bit more straightforward, I think, because they don't have like the deck of cards. But they're really actually playing against that deck, and kind of both players kind of need to learn that deck of cards and figure out, how the Gene Stealer player is going to play. Because, you can have tendencies to like to favor certain special effects and, different things like that. So you've got to be kind of wary of that. But the game mechanics are just like dirt simple. To the point where when I read the rules, I was like, I don't know, this seems really basic. And it is, but it really has some good, like, emergent qualities that come out of it. I think because its core is, I can't explain it, it's so dirt simple. If you watch the walkthrough, it's like, you put some cards down, you spawn, you move, I move, you get it to attack, I maybe get to attack twice. I kind of learn my special abilities. That's it. Back and forth. The rounds go super, super quick. Lots of dice rolling. And you try to maneuver yourself in a position where you can make the most and have the better attacks versus, where you just roll the 1 die or whatever. But once you kind of get into it, it really plays, and it's just like a lot of fun. It's got that kind of Games Workshop style of, it always has that little bit of edge of like gambling, kind of seat of your pants, but it never really ever feels like it's just dumb. It's not like I'm just sitting there, we're just rolling dice back and forth, even though there's a ton of dice rolling. It has a lot of just stuff in there that is more, the game always ends up to me seeming more about what the player does, the risks the player takes, in kind of, watching the risks that they like to take. It becomes more about me versus you than, figuring out some kind of system and mechanisms. And that's really a refreshing kind of thing, actually, these days. And it has a solid sort of, kind of underpinnings to kind of balance it out, and, in a little bit of asymmetry there, in terms of like, I'm doing some hand management, you're doing some kind of positioning and kind of working your special abilities. And sort of dovetailing off of that is the campaign rules in here. I think was there 8? There's more than that. There's 9, 10 missions. There's 9 missions. There's some number of missions. There's 9 missions. And it has very, very simple like rewards for moving to the next thing. It's like you get to have an extra card on your when you draw your cards, or maybe you get to pull in an extra unit or something like that. Very, very simple. Nothing too super groundbreaking. You don't have to write anything down, and it's not like character development or anything like that. But it is a nice way to sort of tie that together and play in very quick sessions. I mean, the games are usually less than an hour, and then you can sit down and play a couple, and then, you pick it up next weekend and you play through some more. And it's really, really just a fun game. It's just a real interesting thing. There is a little bit of a story to it as they kind of, they move through this mining area to try to, figure out what happened to Kill Team Exis that was there before. So it just really is sort of unassuming package in that way, but there's really a lot of fun that you can have here. So I know it's probably, if you look at my subtitle, it's a little bit of a knock on Space Hulk. I am the one freak on this earth that does not enjoy Space Hulk for some reason. I can't figure out why, but to me, this is a better, for me, Space Hulk, because the Gene Stealer player, or the Tyranid player as it were, is a little bit more interesting to play. Actually, a lot more interesting to play in terms of this. And, I think the Marines or the Deathwatch is a lot more interesting to play because it's not, for me, has the corridor thing. The corridor thing kind of drives me crazy with Space Hulk. So I think because this is a little bit open, you've got positioning and range and stuff to keep in mind. You might I just need to stay just out of range. If I move my guy here and just kind of position him in the zone, it has that aspect to it, which makes it feel a little bit like a tabletop miniatures game. Very, very, very light. But it has just enough of those qualities to make me, 100% of the time I would rather play this. So I think if you are a Space Hulk fan, I think you still would probably like this. And I think if you played Space Hulk and you were like, yeah, I wanted to have that kind of real, just in your face, quick combat game, maybe a little bit of a campaign scenarios, and you didn't really like it, you're one of the 8 people on the earth, except me, or including me, then maybe give this one a shot too. Because I think to me, this is what I would kind of imagine Space Hulk to be, even though this is not a giant Space Hulk, it's in a planet of some sort. So definitely pick this one up. I think it's definitely flown under the radar this year. I saw it come out, back in March or whatever, and just kind of didn't really think much of it. And I talked to a couple of friends of mine, and they were like, you should really try this. It's kind of unassuming, kind of under the covers kind of thing. And wow, it's a really, really, really fun game. I definitely recommend it. It's almost like a filler Ameritrash, which if you watch my channel, that I really adore in a lot of ways because there's not enough of that kind of thing. But it's not really a filler. It definitely goes a little bit longer than a filler, but sort of like that meaty filler kind of thing where it's like, I've got 45 minutes or an hour. I don't want to blow my brain cells on anything. I don't want to play something that takes me 20 minutes either. This is perfect for that. It's really, really perfect. It's engaging start to finish, and it's got a lot of drama and excitement and stuff like that in it. So definitely take a look at it. Thanks.